Welcome in the latest episode of the Five on the Floor podcast on the 5 Reasons Sports Network. I'm Ethan Skolnick. Make sure you check out 5reasonsports.com. New columns this week from Nikias Duncan and also from Greg Sylvander, our NBA columnist. I'll also have something up in the next couple of days. Heat losing streak has pushed it back, plus my just general procrastination. Also check out the other podcasts in our network, 3 yards per carry, all the combine coverage. That's actually going on as we speak. A lot of guys running around in their underwear. I've covered that event before. Also check out 5 Rings Canes. Ballscast will be back soon, I am told. The Shula Ball podcast and our big push, Alex is involved with this, our YouTube channel. Not only are you going to get our podcast there, our post-game videos, everything that comes out of locker room, but also some original shows. We've got an original Dolphins show that's on there now from Louis Sung, which kind of takes everybody's Twitter and Facebook comments on the Dolphins and mocks them and plays around with them on this YouTube show. And actually, it's kind of similar to what we've been doing here on 5 on the Floor of late. Before we get to today's episode, I want to tell you about one of the great sponsors of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, the Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm. You can find them at onecalllegal.com, onecalllegal.com. Make sure you spell it out, O-N-E, calllegal.com. They've got someone there 24 hours a day to handle your case, excuse me, whether it's personal injury, immigration, slip and fall, traffic ticket, sports law, anything that you can think of, they handle it, and they handle cases from all over the state, based right there in North Miami, just south of the Golden Glades off 108th and 7th Ave. So go check out the Seltzer Mayberg Law Firm. Again, it's onecalllegal.com. And now, today's episode.
Welcome to 5 on the Floor, a Miami Heat and NBA podcast from Ethan Skolnick with Alphonse Sidney, a.k.a. Alf954. Brought to you by the 5 Reasons Sports Network.
All right, Ethan Skolnick back. I've got Alex Toledo, but something a little bit different for you. Our friend Alphonse Sidney was supposed to be in Colombia by now. Are you aware of this, Alex, that he missed his flight today to Medellin? Do you know this?
No, I did not know this.
Yes. He's blaming it on all kinds of other people. Now, I've been to Colombia before, as people might suspect. I don't think I'll be probably going back anytime soon at this rate. But Alf, I don't know, just delayed it 24 hours. Seemed inebriated when I spoke to him earlier this afternoon.
Oh, I can confirm. I don't even have to ask. I just know.
Yeah.
If he got delayed at the airport, what do you think he's doing?
Well, exactly. And then he compared himself to me in some way, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. And I said, can you pod with us tonight now that you're here another night? And it just didn't happen. So we're going to permanently replace Alf because he was delinquent in his duties, not just on getting on a plane, but also then making one up with us because he hasn't podded with both of us in a while. And we're going to go not just across the pond, we're going to go across a few ponds. And we're going to introduce our next guest, who I think some people are getting familiar with on Twitter. That's where I found his work. You can find him at Simon Sperling on Twitter. He is kind of the overseas answer to our own Christian Hernandez. We're going to have a stat battle here on the podcast. Simon is joining us, not our Simon Clancy from 3 yards per carry, is based in London, but Simon Smith, who currently, where are you right now?
I'm in Melbourne, Australia, so I'm just at my home computer. Yeah.
Melbourne, Australia. This is just, again, I'm going to tell a little anecdote, and then we're going to get to Simon. People don't understand the impact that the Heat have around the world. And among the people who didn't understand it was Dwayne Wade, because he always tells this story about the first time he went to, I believe it was the Philippines, I think. Okay, it wasn't China, because China he had been to before. First time he went there, he didn't think anybody was going to meet him there on the plane, and he was there with Lisa Joseph, who managed a lot of his affairs, and she just tweeted out, this was like early stage Twitter, just tweeted out that he was going to be somewhere, and like 5,000 people showed up. You know, and it was like an hour before they were about to land. I don't really think people understand the impact of the Heat. So, Simon, before we kind of get to the information you're going to bring today, give us your background a little bit. How did you become a Heat fan? Who are you working for now? All that good stuff.
I started following the NBA actually in probably 1991. So, like, I've been following for about 30 years. So, started with the Bulls, the Jordan era and all that sort of thing, worked my way around. And, I mean, it's a funny story, but, I mean, it's not a funny story, but I was actually in Miami the day that the decision. So that's basically how I started following the Heat. I was actually in Miami the day of the announcement with LeBron joining, and I've been sort of passionately involved ever since. So obviously I was a bandwagon jumper at first, but that's the sort of short tale of how I became a Heat follower.
So not only did the Heat get Bosh and LeBron that day, they got you all at the same time. Like you said, not that you're the only one, because there were a lot of others that they got. Now, most of those, Alex, could we say most of those have left? Right?
Yeah, a lot of them were American fans who were following around LeBron and, have now moved on to being Lakers fans.
Or like Cuffs the Legend, like that one.
Oh, wow.
73-9 and they lied, right? Isn't that his tag? I've met him a few times, by the way.
Really?
Well, because I was following LeBron around too, but I was doing it for work. Cuffs was doing it.
Wow.
Cuffs was doing it to pretend to be Drake, right? Like he would get the seats right there. Like he's like, I guess Nick Wright is like the media version of Cuffs, right? Like
LeBron, except without the benefits.
Without the benefit. I don't know if LeBron knows who Nick Wright is. I'm not sure. But Nick Wright is pushing that agenda. So anyway, bandwagoners who stay, I think we respect, right? Like if you were a Heat fan, but you stayed a Heat fan like through the Henry Walker era, like I think you deserve to stay.
Yeah, following Cleveland is obviously not an option. So it's like, well, you need to stay with something. And I remember just towards the end of when LeBron was with the Heat, that Le Batard did one of his rants, and that sort of got me sort of attached to Miami a bit more, if you remember when he was doing those sort of
course.
And that sort of got that. I mean, it didn't get me completely over the line, but it sort of, I thought, well, I'm not going to leave Miami now. So that was sort of what kept me going, and here we are.
All right, so we adopt you. So we're all the way from Melbourne. All right, so let's get to
Was it worth it?
Say that again.
Was it worth it?
Oh, yeah. It's like, obviously the first year was obviously disappointing, but I mean, it's obviously been up and down for 3 years, and obviously now this year's been terrific, bar the last fortnight, but it's good fun.
I don't think Alf would ever use the phrase Fortnite, the word Fortnite in our pod. So we've already upgraded the level of intellectualism here on the podcast. I feel like, again, I have got the other Simon with me for 3 yards per carry. All right, so let's go to some stuff, Simon, because Alex and I have basically beaten this to death. I was mentioning this to you before Alex came on today, that he and I have done a bunch of podcasts. So as with Alf, I mean, the team's lost 7 of 9. They look dispirited. They just don't look the same. I think Bam said at practice today exactly what I kind of witnessed last night, which is that they're not playing with any joy. He said him and Jimmy have to bring the joy back, but Jimmy looked anything but joyful yesterday. Alex and I were in the locker room, and Jimmy was kind of staring at his phone for like 10 minutes before the media came over. He looked very distressed. And the media came over. He did about 2.5 minutes. I mean, I think, again, people have asked what's going on with him. I think it's up to Jimmy to tell people what's going on with him if he wants to. I don't think he should feel obligated to. I'm certainly not going to do it. I don't have all the details, but I have enough of an idea to know this is a difficult time for him. But what we're going to kind of look at is Alex and I have broken this down a number of different ways. But I want to start with some stuff, some stats and numbers that you put out related to a guy who I always defend, because I think part of it is just because I like him. I like his game. I respect how hard he's played for Miami. But I think there's some things right now we really can't ignore. What's some of the stuff you found on Goran Dragic in the clutch?
Yeah. Where do we start? But I mean, I suppose the main thing is that, we were just speaking off air before, is that he obviously he's 33 now, and he's, whether or not he's said himself that he's not quite as fast as he once was, and whether or not that affects his 3-point shooting. He's 0 of 11 from 3, and in his 67 clutch minutes this season, which is obviously pretty horrific. But it's one of those things where it's hard. I don't know. It's hard to put a pinpoint on, because he is the leading scorer for the Heat over the course of the season. In the fourth quarter, he's got over 200 points in total. So, it's more the bottom line facts. He's a minus 31. He's 4 of 20 from the field in the clutch all season. So, I mean, whether you put it all down to Goran's a bit sort of, that's a bit tough. But at the end of the day, it's, I mean, there's probably 20 factors that are all counted, as one. But Goran's probably the one that's just sort of stood out if you just to go by a statistical sort of standpoint.
Now, is that okay? And again, now defense is a whole nother issue where his plus minus is pretty horrific there. But I mean, offense is what he's generally provided the rest of the game. Now, the observation that I've had on this, and the numbers kind of back this up, is he seems to play really well in the first 6 minutes of the fourth quarter and then fall apart. And I'm just wondering, I'll go to Alex on this. And one thing we've observed is sometimes Spoelstra puts Dragic in kind of like halfway through or 4 minutes left in the third quarter and then doesn't take him out. Or doesn't
I'm not
take
a fan of that.
Right, for very long, right? So I'm not.
Feels like he's at the point where he should not be doing that, right? Like he's too old for this,
right?
Especially like if you're trying to get something out of him in the fourth quarter as a creator, and to be, at least not horrific on defense. Yeah, maybe you should start playing him more in short bursts, especially when Hero comes back and they have a little bit more creation. But I think the other problem with Goran, not with the defense, is like they don't have any point of attack defenders on that end. So it looks even worse on him because they're just going from none to Goran. And there's no real like defense at that position now. So I think it stands out even more, right? Because their defense is always bleeding from that position now.
Well, and the other part of that, and Simon and I were talking about this before we came on air, is I was looking at some of the another guy who posts some numbers here on Twitter. He goes actually by the Mad Heat fan. I don't know if you follow the Mad Heat fan. Again, we try to engage Twitter as much as we can, but these numbers are legitimate. I cross-checked them. So, okay, Kendrick Nunn alone, 1,245 minutes, has 114 offensive rating. I'm rounding these up. 114 offensive rating and 108 defensive rating for a +6. So Kendrick Nunn alone is a +6. Goran Dragic alone in 920 minutes is 116 offensive rating, about 110 defensive rating, so about a +6. Both of them alone are pretty damn good, right? Now, here's what they are with both of them on. 410 minutes, 110 offensive rating, 116 defensive rating, a -6. So he tweets, "This shouldn't be happening. Somebody tell Spo." And this is one of those cases where, like, if Alf was on right now, we would say, "I test theater, checks out." Because all year long, Alex, I've been saying, like, watching Dragic and Nunn together, it looks like they just met for the first time. Like, do they have any chemistry together? I don't feel like they've developed like the chemistry that Dragic developed with Dion. Like, I don't see it with Nunn at all.
It's because Nunn doesn't get to the basket like Dion does, or at least like he did in that one year when they won so much. Like Dion, the past couple seasons, has turned into more of a pull-up jump shooter. But back then, he had a nice little steady diet of drives to the rim and passing out, pull-up jumpers. And I think that it was a really good mix with Goran. And I think that's why it was a good mix with Jimmy, because Jimmy's always the one attacking. Goran it takes the pressure off Goran to be attacking because he can't really do it anymore. He made his career off of that. But now, if like Goran's whole offense is pull-up shooting whenever the defense drops, it's just the timing on those shots now. And I feel like it's like neither of them are great point guards. Dragic is obviously better in that end. But they're neither are natural creators, so it can be kind of awkward. They're both minuses on defense, small lineup, so it's just not a great fit.
Have you seen anything there? Is there any numbers, Simon, that would be out there that suggests who Goran should be playing with?
That's put me on the spot. Just going through. I mean, I posted this a few weeks ago. I can't remember, but without stats, but eye test, but. I'm not sure how well he plays with, say, Duncan Robinson. He just seems to. I mean, Goran is. I love Goran, but he seems to just sort of work in, pick and roll with whoever the big is, and then he'll either pull up or he'll whatnot. But just for the season, of all the where are we? I'm just got one here. I mean, Duncan Robinson has made. I'm just reading 244 field goals for the season, and only 17 have been assisted by Goran, so the most have been by Bam, and obviously he works well with the bigs and all that sort of thing. So that's probably one player. I'm not sure they work together. Obviously, they don't work together.
Oh, that's interesting. So 244 field goals. And ostensibly the only point guard. I mean, if we still call Goran a point guard, the Heat don't have a point guard on the whole roster right now. The way that Jimmy's players play, right, Jimmy, right? And Justice is in Memphis. So they don't really have a point guard. But like to have 17 out of 244, so I mean you're basically talking about 1 out of every 12 of his field goals, and obviously all of Duncan's field goals are assisted because he's not creating off the dribble much for himself. I mean a little bit, I guess, but not a ton. To only have that much from Goran tells you something. That's always an interesting stat to me. I remember looking at that LeBron's first year back in Cleveland, and like his percentage of baskets that were assisted like nosedived from where it was with the Heat. And it was just, and there were like no assists from Kyrie. It was just like obvious that like, it was all one-on-one isolation stuff. The Heat don't do that, but Goran does sometimes. I mean, that's a little bit his game, as Alex mentions. Just from an eye test perspective, I mean, Goran seems to have some rapport with Bam, and then he has, and to me, from an eye test, but also a locker room perspective, he has it with Jimmy. But not down the stretch lately, right? Like that's and so I want to pivot a little bit here. This has been getting a lot of attention on Twitter today, as people are actually looking at Jimmy's numbers in the clutch. And what is he, like 1 of 13 now or something like that on 3-point shots in clutch situation? I don't know. The number is horrific. I was
the fact that he's taken that many in the clutch is kind of crazy to me.
I mean, I'm gonna look it up because there was a Philadelphia, somebody from Philly obviously was pushing this.
Like
today.
I might have been surprised if you told me he's taking 13 threes all season, and you just told me that he's taking those in the clutch.
All right, let me see what I can find. Okay,
that might be a little much.
All right, this is also somebody else pushed this from Cleveland. Okay, but I'm not Cleveland. I'm sorry, Philadelphia. This is my anti-Cleveland bias. All right, but also this is from the Mad Heat fan. Also, okay.
He's shot 3 of 18 for the season.
3 of 18. Okay. See?
My God.
Yeah. Well, here overall, look at it. 89 minutes, 79 points. He's shooting 32% overall in the clutch. And I remember, guys' percentages do dip in the clutch. Like even Dwayne's numbers. Look, and again, R.I.P. Kobe. One of the arguments I always had about Kobe through the years was there was this perception that he was amazing in the clutch, when actually Dwayne's clutch numbers were much better than Kobe's, and Kobe's were not very good. Okay, but right. 14 rebounds, 15 assists, 6 turnovers, 2 steals, and a block. I mean, this comparison was made to Chris Middleton, who shot 27% in the clutch this year, taking half as many shots as Jimmy. So the point was Jimmy's not as bad as he seems, but I mean, he is still 32% in the clutch. And here's the stat. It's when Butler's going for a game winner situation this season, he's 1 of 16. Wow. Right, because he was one of 15 going into that shot last night. Now, again, I'm going to temper it a little bit by saying, if you look at a lot of really good players, their numbers get worse in the clutch. 1 of 16, though, is a different level. So if we're basically saying, I mean, we want to know why this thing is nosedived on the Heat at the end of games. The two guys who, are their best sort of creators, Jimmy and Goran, have been horrible at the end of games. Is it that simple? Can we just make that statement?
That, in addition to the fact, obviously, Tyler's been out for the past, 3 weeks or whatever it is, and his clutch numbers this year are just insane, aren't they? So, 8 of 15 threes for the year. I mean, in overtime, he shot 6 of 11 threes in overtime. The rest of the team shot 6 of 26. So,
well, and you had a Bam number that was interesting to me, right? Like, what was the one we were talking about on air? That Bam essentially is the only effective player in these situations of late, right?
Oh yeah, sorry, that's the past year. So the past 2 weeks. The last 8 games has been 4 clutch games. So Bam has shot 5 of 11. And the rest of the team have shot 5 of 30-something. Yeah. So, he's the only one with multiple field goal makes in the past 2 weeks in the clutch.
All right, so let's do this, because I always like to do this with the numbers. I mean, again, sample size is always an issue, but you start to see certain trends, right? Okay, so if that's the case, let's be Spoelstra for a second, right? Because I've commented that Heat fans have basically decided that nobody can play down the stretch but Bam and Jimmy. And now we're even seeing Jimmy's numbers down the stretch are not good, but you're not taking him off the floor. right?
Yeah.
So then he makes the 3-for-3 offense-defense substitutions against Minnesota. You know, Crowder, DJJ, and Iguodala on defense, even though Iggy doesn't seem to be playing any defense. And then on offense, Robinson, Nunn, and Dragic, because you don't have Hero. Okay, so you're going 3-for-3. I'm Simon, looking at the numbers just specifically. I mean, since they're playing so many tight games or games that are blowouts that they're turning into tight games because they're choking away 20-point leads. Who would you play? Like, just looking at the numbers, like, who would you go for the offense guys? Would you go for the defense guys? Is it some combination? Like, what direction should Eric be going?
My opinion, I'd be going for a combination. So, obviously, the two, Jimmy and Bam. You'd have to. I'd have Crowder, Duncan Robinson, and probably Tyler. Until Tyler Hero's back, I'd put in Kendrick Nunn.
Okay.
I just have Jimmy as the creator and just hope that the others can hit shots, when they're there. And obviously, if you've got Andre and Crowder out there defensively, but you probably just.
I like that idea. I've been wanting to see those types of lineups more, especially when Hero comes back. A closing lineup of Jimmy, Bam, and then you have Duncan and Hero for the shooting, and then the fifth guy is Crowder or Iguodala, maybe. Like a lineup like that, I think would really help for the clutch.
So a blended lineup, so that you don't have to do this offense defense stuff.
Yeah, and obviously Duncan is somebody who constantly gets targeted in the fourth, but the hope there is that you have so much offense between Duncan and Hero, surrounding Bam, and between Crowder, who's been pretty good, and enough defense with Jimmy, Bam, and Crowder there that it's enough of a balance. But I feel like we haven't seen much of that yet. Like, we've seen a lot of the Jimmy, Bam, 2 defenders, 1 shooter.
So basically what's going to happen then, though, if you're talking about that, then the 2 vets are the guys that get squeezed, right? So we're basically saying Dragic and Iguodala, no. I mean, just.
Well, I think Iguodala is almost, him and Crowder are kind of replaceable depending who's better that day, or maybe there's a matchup that makes more sense for one of them. But I think all of this really does come down to matchups more than anything else.
Well, do you have any numbers, Simon, on DJJ?
Oh, in terms of the clutch, or
just anything? I mean, is there anything that shows he's one of the hardest players on the roster for me to figure out?
Okay, how about this? How about if I pose a question like this, Simon? Would you put Derrick Jones Jr. as a fourth quarter player? I know matchup dependent, but do you see him as somebody that they can use as a point of attack defender in the fourth quarter, even with all his deficiencies? And could you build a good lineup that is reliable?
Just my opinion, I wouldn't. I mean, obviously they tried yesterday. They played him at the 5, which was pretty weird. I hadn't seen that before.
Well, I think that was it worked because Minnesota had no size, but I don't. It was odd. It was odd.
Yeah, because he was playing with Andre and Crowder, and they were both. I mean, Crowder couldn't hit anything yesterday, obviously, and DJJ is pretty hot and cold. He can go well and he can't. But obviously, defensively he's there. But I wouldn't be with the options they've got now defensively. I wouldn't have him in. But I'm not going to say it's the wrong thing to do. But yeah.
Because it feels like they've bought into him, right? But when we had this conversation, Alex, we were talking about, okay, when Hero comes back, and by the way, I don't know if this qualifies as news or not. I tweeted out tonight. He's already been ruled out for Friday along with Myers Leonard, and I'm hearing it's going to be a while for Tyler. Now I know Tyler came out at the All-Star break and basically told us he wasn't supposed to tell us. The team wasn't happy. He told us there was no media official around him, which is why he told us. But that originally, I saw a Heat official the next day who was like, "Oh God, you guys got one," because that wasn't supposed to get out. That basically, Tyler had been told initially that it was a foot, not an ankle, and that he was going to be out for the rest of the regular season, but that it wasn't as bad as they anticipated. I'm telling you, I'm hearing maybe that the original diagnosis may be a little closer to the truth. So I'm not expecting him. I'm not going to say he's going to be out for the rest of the regular season, but I'm not expecting him back in the next week. Let's just put it that way. I would be surprised. And I know I've gone out on a limb on this before and said I didn't expect Justice to play anytime soon, and everybody called me out on it when he played 15 minutes in Indiana and then he never played again. So is it possible Hero shows up? Yes. Am I expecting it at this point? No. So I'll just put it that way. But let's just say and Myers is a ways away. I can tell you that. If you saw him, you don't even have to talk to him. You just have to watch him walk. He's a ways away. So if you're looking at Hero and Myers back, though, one of the conversations that Alex and I had, Simon, was that DJJ may be the odd guy out, because if you go back to the original starting lineup, which was working, okay, with Myers in there, with Bam and Jimmy and Nunn and Robinson, but then your bench becomes Olynyk, and then you're basically choosing two of the three sort of wing defender guys, DJJ, Crowder, and Iguodala, plus Hero and Dragic. So, you're not going to play 11 consistently. Silva goes back to the bench. Haslam goes back to coaching, basically, right? And that's essentially where you are. And then, Solomon Hill, too. But we've basically said DJJ may be the odd guy out. It sounds to me like you sort of view that the same way, right? But then Alex is reluctant on this one.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. The last few games have just been a little, obviously it's hard to say, but Kelly's been shooting lights out, and for whatever reason, he's been stuck at sort of 15, 16 minutes like per game. And I don't know, he just on the eye test, he looked excellent yesterday. He was 3 of 3 on 3-pointers, and I don't know.
They're trying him out in that Myers role where they're like, oh, we're only going to have you with that starting lineup that's so well, and we see how well you play with Bam, so we're going to keep you in the beginning of the first, beginning of the third, like how they did with Myers at the beginning of the season.
He's had 140 net rating offensive rating over the last 3 games. I'm just sort of.
Is it just about playing next to Bam in the starting lineup? Because we saw how successsual that pairing was last season.
2 years ago in particular, right? It was even better 2 years ago, I thought. Yeah.
They've been good.
Yeah.
But DJJ, I think, with the guys that have come in, I think he'll be the odd man out. But that's.
See, I think that's an interesting situation there, because we've talked about this over and over again, like Ethan said, but they have a weakness on defense, specifically at the point of attack, ever since they traded Winslow, who wasn't playing much, but there's an obvious hole there for guys like Kemba. Like, they're probably not going to play the Celtics in the playoffs, but if that matchup would ever come to fruition, it will be an issue, because they can't really switch like a guy like Jimmy onto Kemba, because then you would have, one of Tatum or Brown or Hayward being guarded by another bad defender. So it's just like, I feel like they can find a way to be creative and harness that aspect of him, and also the rebounding, which has been an issue. But at the same time, it's just an awkward fit, because now when Leonard comes back, he's going to be in the starting lineup. And then from there, it's like, are your backup 3, 4, and 5 just going to be Crowder, Iggy, and Derrick? It's going to be kind of a weird fit when they're all healthy again.
Yeah, I thought the offensive rebounding killed us, especially against the Cavs in overtime. That was like a killer.
Well, that's been a consistent problem. Now, that's been a huge problem in the zone. What's weird about it is they
played Nance at the 3.
Right. Well, their overall right. That's true. But their overall problem has been. What's interesting to me is if you look at their defensive rebounding numbers this year, they're not that bad. It just seems like whenever they need one, they can't get it. And a lot of it seems to be with Bam at the 5.
I think it's because of Myers. They might need a little bit of that when he's back.
I feel like they've missed Myers more than we thought they would miss Myers. I'm even seeing that sentiment on Twitter now. There is a little bit more appreciation for what he was doing. Particularly, we saw how it kind of changed the whole tenor of the Philadelphia matchup, right, when he was back in there and was given the second stint in each half, which he wasn't getting early in the season. So I want to get into that. There's some other stuff I want to get into here with Simon and with Alex. We're going to do more here in a second. Before we do, I want to tell you about a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network, Cervani Men's Custom Clothier. If it's frustrating to shop for dress clothes, you can never seem to find the right fit, color, or style. Maybe you feel like you never know what to wear or how to wear it. Maybe you got a wedding, a special event. Maybe you wear professional attire daily. You've got to go see Blanca over at Cervani Men's Custom Clothier. That's in South Miami. Her private showroom located right across from Sunset Place on Red Road. Cervani's been designing fine custom-made clothing in South Miami for over 30 years. Your custom-made suits, pants, shirts, and shoes will fit you just the way you like. So schedule a private consultation with Blanca to start looking your best and get the benefit of a female's perspective on men's fashion. Give her a call at 305-310-2085, 310-2085. Nothing fits like custom tailored clothes. Stop buying off the rack. Just a few minutes left here, and before we go to our You've Got the Floor segment where I feature somebody on Facebook or Twitter. That got us a lot of love on Miami Heat Source Destination. I'm going to go to another one tonight. I think we'll go to the Heat Lifers Facebook group. But Simon, all right, so how do you fix this? Okay, I mean, what do the numbers tell you? Because you were tweeting out some pretty remarkable stuff about Bam earlier this year. You know what? Before we do, share one of those. That's sort of how I first started to notice your work, was when you were out there kind of tweeting these stats about who Bam compared to, and there were names like Chamberlain in the mix. Give me a Bam stat. It doesn't have to be current. Give me something that you posted this year.
Okay. Can I just scroll down for 1 second and I'll just get back?
We will give you time to do that while I'm looking on the Facebook group for the angriest comment of the day. So that's we got a few of those. I think, Alex, you were a big hit on one of the Facebook groups yesterday. So.
Oh, really? How come?
I don't know. You're just a big hit. You're always a big hit. I'm gonna go to Heat Lifers on Facebook. We're all gonna do a little search here. This is real time stuff. All right. So the Heat. While Simon's looking for that, the Heat Lifers Facebook group has 7,000 members. It's a lot of damn members. 7,000 members on here. I'm gonna read this comment. And I think this sums up where Heat fans are. You ready? This is You Have the Floor. This is for Tony Aguirre. He posted this on Heat Lifers. Alex, your comments on this. Quote, "To be honest, do we even want to make the playoffs? Realistically, how far will we get? Boston or Milwaukee would kill us. There's some nice players in the draft that would help this team next year."
That's hilarious, man. The fact that he said that his reasoning for not wanting to make the playoffs, even though his team is well on their way to 50-plus wins, that basically his reasoning is just, well, I'm scared of the Bucks and the Celtics. Well, guess what? So am I. But that's like 2 teams out of 8. Like, that's hilarious, man. But he's got a good point. Maybe they should just sell off Jimmy and start developing that young core.
Some fans can find any reason to tank. Any reason to tank. I forgot that he'd had a draft pick this year.
So you just got to wait for Riley to retire for that to ever even as an idea in office.
As I always said, if you're waiting for the Heat to tank, you're basically following the wrong franchise. Because
be a Sixers fan, because it sounds like they might tank soon.
They might have to. The news on Embiid tonight was not great. So with Embiid and with Simmons. So anyway, thank you. You had the floor, Tony, and you basically decided that the Heat should try to go from projected to win 51 to try to somehow win 39, maybe just win a few games the rest of the season and pick up the 11th pick in the draft.
Will that even be possible to like?
I don't even
so many
think
games that you make it out of the playoffs. Like, do the Magic or do the Nets have 37 wins?
I don't know. I mean, the Nets. Who's ninth in the East? Washington. I think it's Washington, right?
Is that so?
Yeah, I think it's Washington of all teams.
Wow.
Get Bradley Beal in the playoffs. All right, Simon, you've had time. We've got the floor back. Give me a Bam stat.
This is from 2 days ago or 2 months ago.
Throw them all at me. Throw at me what's good.
Oh, so far this year, he's had 4 games of 13 rebounds plus, 5+ assists, 3+ steals, 3+ blocks. He's had 4 games. The rest of the league combined have had 2.
Wow.
Which are Andre Drummond and Ben Simmons.
Wow.
Early in the season, his opening 30 games, he had posted 315 rebounds, 135 assists, 45 steals, shot 56%. Him and Charles Barkley are the only players in history who have done that through 30 games.
No wonder Barkley likes him so much, because Barkley's actually been positive on the Heat for the first time in a while. I mean, I think some of the stats you've been giving out all year have helped me put into perspective what we're watching. Now I want to watch him take some jumpers and be decisive. I just think we're at that point. I feel like the only person who doesn't realize Bam is that guy is Bam. Like, just take over, man. Like, he's capable of taking over. And there are a couple times last night, again, he tried that dunk. Honestly, if he finishes that dunk on the break, they win the game because the crowd would have gone berserk and probably pulled themselves out of it. So he did go for it that one time, but I just want to see him be more consistently aggressive. I love him. I love everything about him. I love his makeup. I love his game. I love his future. I love the people who love him, who think he's the guy, but he's got to be more aggressive. That's just my opinion. I don't think he knows how good he is.
So. I think you mentioned it the other day against the Cleveland game where he had the dunk opportunity and he obviously kicked it out. Crowder missed the three in the corner.
Yes.
That was I mean, that's one of a number of things, but obviously you can't fault him in any way.
No.
But, yeah.
No, well, even yesterday, and I know, Alex, I think you differed with me on this. So he had, was it you or different? Somebody did, where he had D'Angelo Russell on his back, but he had Olynyk behind him, and he made a beautiful pass to Olynyk, which got the layup. But again, I'm like, sometimes I just want to see Bam take it. Just go for it. You have D'Angelo Russell on your back. Like,
I don't remember differing with you on that, but the one thing I did say last night on the pod was that we maybe should give him credit because I saw the stat the other day where like the amount of dribble drives he's had this season has more than doubled, maybe tripled. It was like a week ago that I saw this particular stat, but Bam has upped his volume significantly in that way. And I agree with you there, though. He can still get better at it. I think that's available to him pretty much all the time, right? Because like he's always got a slower big on him. There's always a lot of movement in the offense from shooters that are kind of bringing the centers up even more. And I think there's just a lot of positions for him to take advantage of that even more. Like I think he should be their second leading scorer pretty much every game now, or if not first. Like I think he has an ability in him even without the consistent jumper.
And that's the thing is like, it's not even about him getting better. It's just about him realizing he's better. Like
I think he has, but I think he not yet. I don't think
to that point.
How good he is yet.
Right. Well, hopefully an off season will help him do that. All right. We got to run soon. So Simon, where do people find your work?
I write for Hoops Habit. They're part of the Fansided network. So my Twitter handle is @Simon Sperling. So that's where I basically, you can find my work there. And obviously on the Twitter, I try and provide stats and whatnot, just that I find interesting and hopefully informative and, sort of try and help to explain what's going on. So that's where you can find me.
Quick question, Simon. Would you take them over the Sixers in the first round, which seems like it might be their likely opponent?
Yeah.
On how you stand on them.
I personally, I would. If we can get home court, that is. If home court, I'd say definitely. Without home court, I mean, that's obviously an easy answer. It's a 28-2 or whatever at home. So.
Yeah, I think that's where we're at too.
Yeah. I mean, I just think, both teams have the most drastic splits in the whole league. And so you need the home court. And I keep saying with the Heat, there's no excuse. There's no excuse. You don't have Hero and Leonard. They don't have Simmons. I mean, they don't have Simmons and they don't have Embiid. Like, secure the home court. Like that's what needs to happen. To me, if you're the 5 seed at this point, this thing's disappointing. Like, get the 4. The goal beginning of the season from the organization is what they told me up in West Palm was home court first round of the playoffs. It's right there for them. So take it. Anyway, Simon, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. A little bit of a different spin on things today. Alex and I will be at the Heat-Dallas game on Friday night. And we may pod, we may not. Depends how things go. We weren't planning on podding after Minnesota, but bleep happens. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the 5 on the Floor on the 5 Reasons Sports Network.